Would love to. All right. So my name is Brandon Smith. I'm a psychology major doing a philosophy minor. I am originally from Boulder, Colorado. It's my hometown. And one thing I'm excited for this upcoming year is just seeing the UH Manoa campus because I've never actually been on campus and I know it's really beautiful. So I'm excited for that.
My name is Cece. I'm a mechanical engineering major. I'm originally from Southern California, and one thing I'm excited about this year is to finally have my first in-person class.
Hello, my name is Kaiya. I go with she, her. I am a journalism major with a sociology minor. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and one thing I'm excited for, I just switched to journalism, so I'm excited to take those classes and see what it's about and go back to campus later on.
Hi everybody, I'm Kanani. My major is fashion design and I have a minor in business, and I'm originally from Waipahu, Hawaii, and something I'm excited about for this year is making new friends on campus.
Hi, I'm Kyra. My major is biology and I'm originally from Castle Rock, Colorado. I'm excited for all of the food places to be open on campus again, eating on campus.
Hi, I'm Ruby Eliason. I'm a business major. I'm from Fresno, California, and I'm really excited to get to meet a lot of new students this year.
Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the first question. Brandon, would you like to go ahead and read it and answer?
Great. So next question. It says, one of the most frequent questions we get from students and parents is, if you could have one piece of advice from your first year at UH, what would that be? So for me, one thing that really helped is like getting a planner and writing down everything you have to do in it at the beginning of the semester, like looking at all your syllabi and then just looking at, like, most professors will tell you when they're going to have you turn stuff in. So just before you even start classes, go into your planner and write down every single due date. It kind of is annoying to do at the time, but once you get it done, you will be thanking yourself for the rest of the semester.
I think the best piece of advice I could give is don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, advisors on campus and even your professors and everything, they're all there to help you. And it's a little scary reaching out at first, but they're super helpful.
Ooh, I was going to say a very similar answer, especially because of COVID and online schooling. I was definitely going to say reaching out was a big one for me, because as a class of 2020 student who had to graduate online and like do all of that stuff, it felt weird having to be an adult for yourself, right? And having to go out of your way to talk to professors. So don't be afraid. Like, when there's office hours, take that time for yourself. When it's study groups, whether it's the Google Calendar, whatever planner is, just making sure you put your voice out there is really important for the success of yourself, especially because, you know, you're paying for your college education, you want to be here for that experience. So
on a similar note, the only time that, or I guess rather, the only person that loses out when you don't ask questions is you. So if you ever have like a moment of hesitancy where you're thinking, maybe I should ask a question, maybe I should go in and ask the professor about this, always do it. Because I had a moment in my very first class that I took in college where the professor offered to do like a double credit. So we were getting like this type of credit, but he said, if you just come in and ask, you can also get a writing credit on top of that. I did not ask for it because I thought I would be fine if I didn't ask for it, and I ended up losing out. So if you ever think that you should ask for something, always ask.
My biggest piece of advice would be to make or join group chats with other students, especially in big general ed classes. A lot of times students will start huge Discord chats, and those are really helpful because you can get help from other students. They make study groups and have times to get together. And just even knowing important dates, people will remind you of test dates in the group chats. So if you don't know of one that's already started for your class, don't be afraid to start one yourself, because everyone loves to join them. They're super, super helpful.
Yeah, you guys all gave great advice. I think the only thing I could really add to that was to find a way to study that works for you and to kind of stick with that, or set aside time to make sure you have time for your academics too, because that is kind of the reason you're at college. So make sure to get in those library hours or the group study sessions or whatever works for you.
I could go ahead and read our next question if y'all are cool with that. So I guess I'll answer first. How did you choose your classes and or manage your registration schedule? Personally, since I barely knew anything about college coming into it, I had no idea what I was doing. I entered in the honors program just through the interview, and then the professor was like, hey, by the way, do you know what classes you're taking? And I was like, I have no idea what I should be doing right now. And so really talking to advisors, I think, was one of my biggest takeaways from registration. Even if you see the list of required classes and stuff like that, sometimes it's confusing on STAR. So if you are confused, I would say talk to your major advisor, talk to a general advisor, if you're in a program like honors or a specific program, then talk to those advisors if you feel lost, because you don't want to waste your credits or your time in college. And it's always good to find ways to make loopholes and all of that stuff towards graduation. So that's what I would say.
Well, I could answer this one next. Yeah, I think like for me, the biggest thing with registering for classes was when I was at the beginning of my major and didn't really know what to do. I pretty much just went to the general education requirements page that is on the UH Manoa website. And I kind of spent a lot of time on STAR GPS, just like browsing through classes that would complete those requirements. So yeah, at the very least, if you have no idea what you're doing, just try to start knocking out some gen ed requirements. You can't go wrong doing that.
For me, with the College of Engineering, they offer curriculum check sheets that kind of like list out what classes you need to be taking in order to graduate. And then with that, we also have mandatory advising where we have to meet with an advisor. And that combination of those two really helped me figure out what my plan was for the upcoming semesters. And that's how I picked my schedule.
Prior to being a fashion design major, I was an environmental design major, and environmental design requires a whole lot of classes. So because I've basically planned registration schedules for both, I can say that using those 4-year plans and those course requirement sheets that the previous panelists have brought up, you need to use both of them because you need to cross-reference them, because sometimes they don't overlap. So not all of the classes you need to take will always be in that 4-year plan. So be very careful to cross-reference both of them. And I would recommend actually putting them in a spreadsheet, because some classes, depending on your major, some classes will only be offered in certain semesters, and some classes will be offered on the basis of when professors are available to teach them. So be very careful with your registration schedule. It helps to organize it on a spreadsheet.
For me, I'm a biology major, but I'm on the pre-physical therapy route. So there's a lot of things that I have to do for my biology major, but there's required classes that I found out that you will want to take for going into physical therapy, or same thing with classes or majors like pre-dental and things like that. So I have met with my biology advisors, and then they refer me to a second advising program, which is the pre-health and law advising program. So if anyone is on the same track, pre-health, pre-law, it's important to not only go to your main major's advisors, but try to find those secondary advisors too, because they'll help you through all of the classes that may not be required for your major, but you'll want to take to get into graduate school. And they have separate spreadsheets and checklists, like the other panelists have mentioned, that will show you what those classes are, what semesters they're offered in, when you should probably take them in order to get in.
Yeah, definitely meet with your advisor. I love my advisor, and I probably meet with her 2 times a semester, which is a little excessive, but she's been really helpful and really guiding for me. And I don't know if it's called the same in everything, but in business, we have a blue sheet that basically lists out all the classes and requirements you have for graduation. And so for me, I've been kind of mixing and matching which classes I'm going to take which semester, depending on class availability. I also think that it's important to make sure you take classes that are going to be like a good balance of classes that are right for you. Like I decided not to take any of my science classes until I was more likely to have them in person, just because I'm not super science based. So definitely make sure you're looking at the classes you're going to take each semester as well.
Okay. Thanks, Brandon. I saw you. Before we actually jump into the next few questions, I do want to have the leaders reintroduce themselves. I know I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties before we started, but I appreciate you folks coming back in or trying to log on. So if you can, I'll have the leaders introduce themselves.
Okay. So my name is Brandon Smith. I'm a psychology major and a philosophy minor. I'm from Boulder, Colorado, and I am very excited to see the UH Manoa campus this year because I've never been on campus.
My name is Cece. I'm a mechanical engineering major, originally from Southern California, and I'm really excited to have my first in-person class this semester.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kaiya. I am a journalism major with a sociology minor. I'm from Portland, Oregon. And one thing I'm excited about, I actually recently switched to from sociology major. So I'm in taking these classes for the next semester and also coming back to campus.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kanani Sato. My major is fashion design, and I'm going for a minor in business. I'm originally from Waipahu, Hawaii, and what I'm excited about this year is getting back on campus, making new friends, and getting to see all of the on-campus opportunities that they have for us.
Hi, my name is Kyra. I'm a biology major on the pre-physical therapy track. I'm originally from Castle Rock, Colorado, and one thing I'm really excited for this year is being back on campus in the food places and getting to eat and actually eat in the restaurant.
Hi, my name is Ruby Eliason. I'm from Fresno, California, and I'm a business major. And one thing I'm really excited for this year is getting back on campus, meeting new people, and just getting to do fun like on-campus activities like intramural sports.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next question, Brandon. Let's do number 4.
Okay. So the fourth question on here is, what tips do you have for studying and what works for you? This is kind of a tough one because there's so many ways to do it, but I think having like an organized study space is really important. Like for me, I do all my schoolwork pretty much at my desk, and like I know when I'm at my desk, that's kind of like I'm working. So it kind of helps to be more like mentally and know that that's like my workspace. And as far as like other note-taking strategies, well, I think it's important to just write down a lot of stuff. Like try to write down most of the stuff your professor says, honestly. And then you always have that there and you can go back and study that and review that.
Tips I have for studying is just figure out what works for you. Everyone learns in different ways. So like if you need to find what works best for you. I know for me, like I can't work or study in groups. I need to be by myself in like a quiet, no distraction area in order to really focus. So just like figure out what works for you.
Yeah, definitely customize how you learn things, and also like what kind of learner you are is really good to identify. Like for me, for example, I am very much a visual checklist, like that kind of color coding kind of a person, and so I need to have that done from I'm sorry, I can't speak. I need to have that done from myself in order to like understand what's coming up next. So I'll be like, school is green when I put it on Google Calendar, and work is blue, like that kind of stuff. Or even just like app wise, trying to find like a reminder app for yourself on deadlines, or Zotero, or some kind of like tracker for your different sources that you need to have for essays and stuff like that. I'm also more of a social butterfly kind of a person, but it's weird online. So having good study groups within your classes are also really good for me. I think those are the things that help me stay afloat during classes in online school.
That was all really good advice. I guess going off of that, knowing what kind of social study, like social studier, I guess, what your social level is while you're studying, because it's like on a spectrum from studying by yourself in a quiet space without anybody else in the room, all the way to actively discussing the material with another person. So personally on that spectrum, I do like a quiet space, but I am fine with like other people being in the room. So something that I like to do is like, I'll go to Starbucks with my friend and we'll sit at the same table, but we'll just kind of have like quiet study time. And knowing what works for you is really helpful, because in the case that anybody like invites you to go out to study with them, you know what your limits are, because I think sometimes people, like if somebody asks them to study with them, they feel pressured to go out, even if they're not comfortable or they're not really good at studying with other people, because it could be a distraction and stuff like that. And that could obviously be a hindrance if you have like a lot of stuff, but your friend invites you out and you feel like you can't say no. So yeah, know what your limits are and what works best for you when you're studying.
For me, my biggest struggle with switching to online school, especially, was staying on task. So my biggest tip is to find and have a designated study space. I used to try to do my homework in bed, which we should all know is not a great idea, because then I just sleep or I watch TV. I get so distracted. And even my desk in my bedroom from home, I have TV, I have roommates and things that I get so distracted with. So for me, it has actually been putting in the effort to go somewhere to study. Otherwise, I can't focus. I know some people, like we've talked about, like really quiet spaces for studying, which I do too. So I pretty much live at Hamilton Library on campus. It has AC too, which is very nice. But yeah, so my biggest tip is just don't stay in bed, because that's not good to do your homework. But find a space that you can actually focus and make it somewhere different than your everyday life. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to actually call it like your school space.
Yeah, kind of like Kyra, I really like to go places to study. I also kind of I feel like I have to get in the right mental state to really like retain information. And so sometimes I'll get dressed up and like do my hair, and like then I'll like drive to a coffee shop and get myself like a $5 coffee and be like, ooh, studying. But then that kind of sets me in the right headspace to really kind of get some work done. And like I'll sit there for like 3 or 4 hours and like write an essay. And I feel like, I don't know, moving into a different space really helps me kind of focus, as well as like prepare and kind of be like, okay, we're studying now, we're in a studying time. So also setting a time, like aside time blocks to do that, and not like overbooking yourself. Like if you know you have a test coming up or a paper due, instead of going to hang out with your friends, be like, no, I really have to get this done before I can do anything else, is really useful for me as well.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and jump to question number 5. How did you folks pick your major and or minor? And yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, for me, I've been interested in psychology for a really long time, ever since I watched the show Criminal Minds when I was younger. It's a pretty cool show. You should check it out. But yeah, I kind of always knew I was interested in psychology. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to major in it, because college is a big commitment and stuff. But eventually I decided to end up doing it. I'm happy that I did. And my minor like in the couple years before I went to UH Manoa, I was like really have been reading a lot. And I realized that some of the books I had been reading were kind of like philosophy books. And I also read a couple books about like Eastern philosophy, like and religions like Shintoism and Taoism. And then I saw that UH Manoa had an Eastern philosophy minor, and I was like, that sounds pretty cool. So I'm going to do that. But yeah, I think it's a different journey for everyone. But I do think there's a lot to be said for majoring in something you are passionate about and interested in, because you may want to go for something that's going to get you a lot of money or that's going to be stable. But, you know, it's different for everyone. But I mean, a lot of times majoring in something you're interested in is going to take you farther a lot of times.
Yeah, I know for me, like Brandon, I got kind of lucky with engineering just because I've always enjoyed science and math classes, and engineering was just a good fit for me. I know that's not the case for a lot of people, and a lot of people like spend time in college like figuring out what they like and what they enjoy. And I think some of the other panelists can speak to that about like switching majors around.
Yeah, I definitely, so as a student with like immigrant family backgrounds, definitely a lot of the career paths were very put on a lot of the younger kids, you know? And so I was having like a whole identity crisis of like, what do I want to commit to? Like, what do I really want to do? So also, since I didn't know much about college, I came in as a sociology minor. And I know you don't have to come in with a major in mind, like you can come in exploratory, but in my head, I had the idea that I had to come in knowing something already. And so it wasn't working out for me at first in the first semester. Like I already kind of understood the terms and stuff, but it just wasn't my thing, you know? And then I decided that to combine things that I'm passionate about, a lot about climate change, indigenous rights, and doing videography and all those different things, I wanted to combine it and do journalism. And so that's why I switched, I want to say in April, so in the very last like 2 months of school, I switched majors. And since I still had those sociology classes and credits, I didn't want them to go to waste, and it became my minor. And so that's the reason I switched over to the one that I'm doing. So I guess the advice I would give is make sure you're doing in college something that you're passionate about, not something you're being pressured to do. It is your education, it's your life. And so I want to make sure everybody's owning that, and you don't want to regret the decisions that you make for your education. So yeah, make sure you're following your passions for it.
Yeah, similar to Kaiya, I recently changed my major, and I changed from environmental design, which is the bachelor's program for the School of Architecture, to fashion design. And the reason why I did that is because I came in wanting to do architecture because I'm just generally a creative person. So I knew I wanted to do something in the arts, and I thought architecture would be a really good fit for me. But after a year of architecture classes and stuff, I didn't really feel as excited, I guess, as I was in the beginning. And something that I would really recommend if you are thinking about switching majors, if you do not know what you want to do, take classes for multiple majors at the same time. So what I was doing was I was in architecture classes, but I was also taking my fashion design classes at that time. And I just loved my fashion design classes so much that I was able to work up the courage to switch over to a different major. And yeah, like Kaiya said, it's your life. Do what you're passionate about. And that's actually leading into that. That's actually why I chose my business minor. And the reason why is because, as you all know, the economy is not great right now. It won't be great for a few years. We're still recovering. And that business minor just kind of gives me a little bit of security, or like mental security in a sense, as everybody in the arts knows that when the economy is not doing very well, it's a concerning time for people working in the arts. And that's like across every single artistic field. So for me, it's a peace of mind. And having a minor in business is really flexible. So if you have that extra space in your schedule, it really is flexible for really anybody in any major. I'd really recommend it.
So similar to both Kaiya and Kanani, I've also gone through a major change. I came to UH Manoa as a marine biology major, I was from Colorado and I have family on Maui, so visiting the ocean, I just fell in love with it. I decided at a very young age that I wanted to do was be a marine biologist. And then I got to UH Manoa and I was taking my general eds and some marine bio classes, and everything was really, really fun. But I actually I had an ACL tear and I went through surgery and rehab and things like that. And my physical therapist, while I was going through rehab, told me, you would probably be really good at this. And when she told me that, it was almost like an identity crisis, kind of similar to what Kaiya said, because my whole life I'm going to be a marine biology major. But then all of a sudden someone else put the idea in my head that, maybe you would like this. So I started researching and trying to figure out what I would need to do for that. And I just really fell in love with the idea of helping people, being a physical therapist. So I had to put in all my paperwork for changing a major. And I changed from marine biology to just general biology, which was nice because all of my previous classes pretty much still counted towards regular biology. I didn't have to add or retake any courses. But it was a big deal for me because, like I said, identity crisis my whole life. So I would say that's one of my biggest accomplishments coming through school thus far, is actually realizing that, yes, but what you wanted to do doesn't have to be what you continue on with in college. It's okay to change things up and realize that you found a new passion.
Yeah, so I actually have a little bit of a different kind of path. So I was a direct admit student into Scheidler, and so I've been taking business classes like as a freshman, and I am a business major, but I haven't declared my actual major. I came in starting to think I wanted to be an international business major, but after my first business class where we really learned about what each major does and their kind of role, I was like, actually, just kidding. I don't really want to be an international business major, which is why I'm kind of more lean towards marketing or kind of entrepreneurship. So I'm business, but I haven't quite declared what in business I want to do yet. And I'm still kind of exploring that by taking business classes and kind of just figuring out what I want to do through, I guess, learning.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to go to the last question that we have prepared, and then we'll go ahead and open it up to folks who actually have questions for you. So if you do, please utilize the Q&A function. So the last question that I have for you folks is, how do you interact with faculty during your time? Do you do so or do you have a recommendation? Do you do for research? Should students start thinking about what they want to do in terms of research?
Yeah, I think it's probably never too early to think about this stuff. For me personally, I could have done a better job of interacting with faculty over the last year because I've only been online at UH Manoa, so that has definitely made things a bit harder, going to office hours and stuff. But I think, especially in person, definitely try to go to office hours and actually get some relationships with your teachers. And I mean, online too, it's just a little more difficult. And as far as letters of recommendation, it's totally cool to pursue a relationship with a professor, just for the end goal of getting a letter of recommendation. I mean, it's a lot of people do that. And of course they have a lot to teach you too, but they're not going to be offended if partway through the semester you tell them hey, I'm considering maybe using you for a letter of recommendation at some point. I'm not sure what, but how do you feel about that? And just putting it out there, most of the time they're going to be yeah, cool. Thank you for letting me know. I'll keep that in mind. And, whenever you want that, just reach back out to me. But as far as those letters of recommendation, they should really come from people who know things about you, personally. Shouldn't just ask a professor for a letter of rec just because you got an A in their class, because that's going to be all they know about you. So yeah, those relationships are going to be really important, and it's never too early to think about them. And even if there's just a couple faculty members or professors that you kind of, bond with, that's awesome, and that will help you a lot in the future.
Yeah, same as Brandon. All my interaction with faculty at UH so far has been online, like through Zoom and whatnot. But I think that is still possible to like make good connections with your professors. Going to their office hours and just emailing, reaching out for help gives you a chance to get to know them better. I think we all are going to need some point recommendation letters and chances for research, but I think it's important to get to know your professors or faculty on a personal level rather than just getting something to gain. I think when you make those personal relationships, it'll make your recommendations and research better because you're not just doing it for that, like you're doing it because you genuinely like enjoy working with the person. So I think that's definitely something important to start thinking about now because 4 years goes by fast.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Brandon and Cece. I also, for the past year, had mostly pretty much online interactions with whether it's synchronous or asynchronous with teachers. But I also agree, like having those relationships built before you start asking for those things is probably always the best way to go. For me personally, like I was saying earlier, as in the honors program, we have like a set project that we're supposed to do at the end of graduation for the showcase and everything. So the end, I don't know if it's like an end goal, you could say, but the end product is all this research that you've done from whatever years that leads to that moment. So I have no idea what I was doing. I was like, I'm a freshman. I'm just now getting used to everything. I still want to know stuff. But honestly, being with my professor, my honors professor, and having individual meetings with even my Hawaiian studies professor, whoever it is, it gets really cool because you get to know them better. They get to know you better. You get to understand the class better. Like there's no negatives about trying to learn more about your professor. And also from my experience, I actually got like connections to other professors and other areas that I might be interested in. Like if they see that you're sparking interest in something, they'll be like, hey, what about this person? You should go talk to them. Or even internships I got because I got to talk to professors and their friends. So it's really good to make those connections with students, but it's also just as good to make them with teachers that you connect with and that you think you can appreciate for that also. So yeah.
I'm gonna approach this question from like the more of like the research and networking side, kind of what Kaiya was talking about, because it's gonna be different depending on your professor. My very first professor I had, funnily enough, it was for a science class, and this guy looked exactly like Mark Ruffalo. So we were all like, this is Bruce Banner, because as a scientist, it looks like Mark Ruffalo. But anyways, Bruce Banner, like first day of class, he was talking about how he was working on this, and this for research. And he was telling us about all of these research opportunities. And if we were interested, we just had to let him know. So sometimes it's as easy as that. And so when they give you that opportunity, I really recommend that you take it, because most professors don't do that. They don't just open up their research opportunities to anybody. So if that's the case, do take on those opportunities if you can. But most of the time, you have to go in, like they said, the previous presenter said, you have to go in and kind of talk to them. And it's sort of, you might want to like put on your networking hat for that, in a sense that something that I learned about networking is that you have to just be open about what you want. Because me personally, I'm not that kind of person where I like to tell everybody like, I want this, this, this. I'm not like that, but it's a part of networking because, for example, like what they were saying, go in and ask for your letter of recommendation, go ask for the research opportunities. But on top of that, go in and just talk about what your goals are. So for example, if you want to do research for science, go in and say, my dream is to be this kind of scientist. And just explain to them what maybe like your smaller goals along the way. I would love to do research about cancer. I would love to do research about this. And tell them like your dreams and goals. And like, you might think it's kind of odd because you're sharing this with a person that you probably don't know that well. But it's important to share those dreams and goals because these are the people who have connections to get you those, help you achieve those goals and let you follow your dreams like that. So yeah, always be very upfront about what your goals are.
So I have a little bit different perspective than my other panelists here because I have worked in both the Department of Chemistry and the Department of Biology as a student instructor. And I'll start off with, I found myself being offered those roles because, especially with in-person classes, I like to talk to my professors, and even the smallest thing, such as saying hi and how are you when you walk in the classroom instead of going straight to your seat. Even that tiny connection will open the window for a lot of opportunities. So I started off by doing that. And then towards the end of the semester, talking to my professors about, well, do you have any other like opportunities for this, this, and this? You'll find that most professors, or all professors, are really willing to help. That's their goal being an instructor, is to help you and advance you as a student. So when I found myself in these instructor roles that I have now been doing as a student instructor, I think I see that a lot of times students dehumanize instructors and just think they're the teacher, like that's all I need from them. But you don't realize that the instructors really want to help you and get to know you, because not a lot of students will actually try to make a connection. So when one person does reach out, it's like, wow, like this person cares. This is so awesome. I'm going to do everything I can to help them. So like a lot of other students have said, just don't be afraid to reach out, because professors and instructors are actually looking forward to that. And that's one of their favorite parts of their job, is helping you and getting you what you need.
Yeah, definitely. Just like students, I feel like a lot of my professors have missed that human interaction, like of in-person classes as well. And so I've tried to, like personally, I try to reach out and email or like go to office hours for all of my professors at least once a semester, even if the class is asynchronous, just because I like to put a face behind the information on Laulima. And some of my professors have even agreed to meet in person on campus, like outside with masks. And it was really great to like kind of just see people, I guess, or be like, wow, you're a real person. You're just not a talking head in the video. And so I really enjoyed that. And I feel like kind of reaching out and connecting is really important. I also feel like asking for help is important. And if you have a relationship with that professor, or you've emailed back and forth a couple times, it's a little less scary to be like, hey, could we go over my essay? Or, hey, what can I do to improve for my next test? Or what can I do to kind of help me retain this information? Or what have you seen students do that have like helped them succeed in their career path? And so I definitely think it's important to like kind of, I guess, talk to them like they're humans. Professors aren't robots. They have feelings. They care about their students. I'm sure they're sad when they're like, oh, I have to record my Zoom call for the 8th time. Like one of my professors was telling me it takes him like 6 hours to record a Zoom call. And I was like, or to record his like video webinar, I guess, like video lecture. And it's like an hour-long lecture. He was like, yeah, I just have to keep restarting and keep restarting. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. Like I sit through 3 or 4, but I couldn't do that for an entire semester. And so I guess it's important to have that human connection with them as well.
I love all of these answers, and I'm sure our students are really learning from you folks. So we are going to open up to the Q&A. So we only have 3. Let's do the first one. Before school starts, do I need to go to school to get my ID and items like that, even if I'm distance learning? When do you get your textbook? So not everyone has to answer this question, maybe just 1 or 2. First person that comes to mind is probably Kaiya, because I think you've been distance learning. Yeah, maybe if you can opine or jump in on that one.
Yeah, I don't think, okay, so for me personally, I will actually be staying home for fall and going back to campus in the spring. So I don't think I have had to get my ID pass yet, only because that pass also involves like the transportation and U-Pass, and I'm not on campus for that. But when you do get there, you do need to have that with you. I was asked about this in my OL Wednesday also, and it looks like the Manuel One card has a website for that to register it and get your ID done. Usually it's when it's in person, it's at the campus. There's like a campus ID office in Campus Center. So you can just go straight over there. It's like right by the food court, and they'll have it there for you. You just have to send in their photo. That was my experience for that. And then for somebody else could also speak to that if you want to. And then when it comes to getting textbooks, one of the biggest things I would say is don't actually buy your textbook until your professor tells you you need that textbook. It'll say in your syllabus sometimes like, these are the required readings that you're gonna have, and it's this much at the bookstore, or like you should get this at the bookstore, that kind of thing. There's also always, unless there's access codes, there's always used books that are out there that are much cheaper than what is inside of most college campuses. And at the same time, you never know if your professor decides to not use that book or not use that textbook for later on. So definitely just make sure until your professor says something about it, don't waste your money on it, because some textbooks do get very expensive, and that was very eye-opening for me coming to college. But if anybody else wants to speak to that, or that's cool.
Yeah, I have one thing to say about that too. I definitely agree with everything that Kaiya is saying. I think it can be harder. Like for me, I was living out of state, so like I didn't want to buy the textbooks until classes started. But since once I bought them, it would take like a week or two to ship them to me. I ended up just buying all of them because I was like, I don't know, like if the semester starts and then I do need the book, then I'm not going to have it for 2 weeks and then I'm going to be behind. But looking back, what I should have done is just emailed my professors and asked them which ones I needed to buy. So if you're like out of state or something, I would say just don't be afraid to email them and just be straight up with them, tell them that you're out of state and just ask, what you really need. They'll always work with you.
I think too, it's important to check Rate My Professor. That's a website that you can go to, because sometimes the syllabuses or your professors will say you should get this book, but not to, I don't want to step on any professors or anything, but sometimes the reviews will say, you don't actually need the book to pass this class. So if you can save yourself that $100 on a textbook, I would check Rate My Professor, or even wait until like the second, third week of class to see if will I actually need this book in the class to pass. Because just personally, I'm all for just saving that money if you can.
Okay, next question. If you ever had to miss a few days of class, what helped you the most to catch up? And did the professors let you get the work ahead of time before you left?
In my experience, usually if you come with like a good amount of time before you need to miss class, they're pretty good about letting you do things before the deadline or after the deadline. They usually have a better idea of what will work better. So they will either let you turn it in earlier, or they'll let you do it later, depending on what kind of assignment it is. But I would recommend, if you are going in to office hours to talk about, hey, I'm gonna miss class this day, what do I gotta do? Use it to network, like we were talking about. Put in your introduction, say, hey, introduce yourself, because sometimes classes are so big that they won't know who you are. So be sure to introduce yourself. And like everybody was saying earlier, talk to them about what research you're interested in. Talk to them about everything. Take every single opportunity you can to talk to them like that, even if it's just initially to ask about missing classes.
I know for situations like this too, it's good to get in contact with people in your class, because I know when I've missed classes, I could reach out to some friends I've made in the class and be like, hey, what did I miss? Could you send me the notes or whatever? I think one of the other panelists was talking about Discord, but a lot of times there's Discords for your classes and they'll just tell you what you missed if you ask them.
Okay, and last question, how do you feel about signing up for 19 credits, going to the first week of class and potentially dropping a class?
Yeah, I can answer this. I actually took exactly 19 credits last semester. And so I don't know, I wouldn't recommend it if you're a first year incoming freshman. It's just a lot on your plate to handle. Or if you're a new student to the school, I would say probably wait to take some of those heavier loads until you've at least adjusted a little bit more. Um, I I didn't drop any of my classes, so I committed to the full 19. And I wouldn't say, like, you might think it's okay going into it. And the first month, I want to say, is always probably the easiest for a lot of classes, especially the first week, like syllabus week. All you do is you get your papers, you meet students, kind of thing. But by the time midterms roll around and then finals, you're like overloaded. I felt like I had so much work. I was working deadline to deadline, not because of procrastination, just because of how much stuff I had like going on. And so it's definitely stressful. I wouldn't recommend that necessarily. I mean, I did it because I wanted to get the classes out of the way, and I like couldn't take that class any other semester basically, and so that's just the way it worked out for me. I guess dropping it, like, you can always drop a class if you need to, so that's probably the best. I mean, if you can't handle it, you can always drop it, but just know that there is drop deadlines, so you can only drop it for so long without like having a withdrawal in your transcript. So
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, as far as credit overloads, also just remember that the maximum you can take is 18, and if you want to do more than that, you have to pass one semester with 18 or more, with 18 credits, with like at least a 3.0 GPA, I think. So I think if you're an incoming freshman, I don't even think you can take more than 18 credits. So that's just something to consider too.
Yeah, I was also gonna say, just to like 15 credits is usually considered full time, but also remember credit hours reflect like how much time you're gonna take outside of class to do homework, and also like how much time you're in class to do the class. So just keep that in mind when you're seeing what classes are, because some are like 4 credit classes and some are 3 credit, and it just depends, or one, and it just depends how much you're committed to it. Just remember, if you do that, make sure that you're like ready for it, because that's like, if you're really looking forward to doing something like that for this person, just be super prepared, because it is overload compared to what a full-time student already does. Make sure you have the time and energy for that. But yeah, go ahead, Kanani.
Just really quick, as somebody who's taken 19 credits every semester I've been here because I'm absolutely crazy, you gotta watch this when in that first week when the syllabuses come out, get all of them, put them next to each other, and then put every big deadline, like the midterms, the finals, the big papers, whatever you got to turn in, put it all on a calendar so you can see if any of them overlap. Because if any of them, like if you got 3 big projects due on the same day, you got to drop one of the classes. So that was just, as somebody who has taken that, that's what I do. And that's been really helpful, because like Ruby said, you don't want to be on the day of that day where everything is due, and then you can't drop the class at that point. If you realize that you're going to have that overlap in that first week when you're still able to drop a class, I would highly recommend that.
Okay, we do have one more. So I know folks have OLW shortly, like right at the clock. So if you folks have to dip out to your leader, that's totally fine. But I do want to ask this question because it's a good one. And then, yeah. So how did you balance your school life, work life, and social life?
Could I answer this just because I have to go in a little bit? I'll answer real quick. So the way I balanced it out, y'all, I literally took a Google spreadsheet and I put like block by block, this is my time that I have class. This is the time that I'm going to be like exercising or doing whatever. And I blocked off, because of my credit hours, I reflected how much homework I think I would have. And I just block off time for that. So I'd be like, that's my honors homework time. That's my sociology class, my journalism, whatever. And if I finish early, I finish early and I get to go do other things. Or I could use that to work on my other classes, all that stuff. So just making sure, like, for me personally, since I'm a visual learner, again, like I have to have it like out for me to see. So I will like write it on a paper. When I was back on campus, I would like be in between Zoom calls, like looking at my paper on the wall and then going back to class and looking at the paper, kind of a thing. So yeah, just making sure you have it all out for yourself. I don't like being spontaneous in the way that I study, because I don't want there to be like a last minute test I forgot about or anything. So just have all your stuff in mind when you're doing that kind of balancing out of things, and clear communication with people, like setting your boundaries, even with your friends. It's okay. Like they have class too. So it's okay. Everybody's going through it. So
I think one thing to keep in mind is that school life and social life can a lot of times overlap. So me and my friends, we hang out all the time, but our hangout is going to Starbucks and working on our homework together. So it's still social. It's still really fun, but we're all being productive at the same time. So if you can find ways to make things like that overlap, it helps a lot.
Yeah, I also use a spreadsheet and I write down all my assignments for all my classes, like when I get my syllabuses. So I just have that all right out right then. And then I also use like an app, like a to-do list app, and I kind of just write any events on there, because like I also have like, I don't know if anyone else has this, but like I didn't think about things like doctor's appointments or like, I don't know, going to the post office to mail stuff, like kind of just stuff that you, or like cleaning your dorm. So that kind of stuff that you don't think about doing every day, but like you have to do now that you're living on your own. And so like I would usually take Sundays too to kind of recharge and study. Like I would kind of do all my chores, so like laundry, clean, and then like also study and like organize myself for the week to be ready for the next week of classes and like friends as well.
Okay. Actually, I think, all of your folks' OLWs are probably in a little bit. Cece, you finished yours this morning, but there is one more question. So if okay with you folks, are most of your friends from your major or housing or random?
I know for me, when I first moved onto campus, all my friends were from housing. Like they were my neighbors, like next to me. I didn't have a roommate, but my first friends were the people on my floor. But then I think after you get like kind of situated on campus, you kind of find your people and you make friends more like specific to you, I guess, maybe through your major, or I joined a sorority. So I found a lot of friends through that. But I think it takes time, but you'll find your friends who you'll spend most of your time with.
Yeah, I think meeting people in your housing at first is those are always your first friends. Well, not always, but those were my first friends too. But as the school year goes on, most of the friends I made were either from classes, or I've made friends just from sitting at Starbucks and saying, "Oh, hey, I like your shirt." You know, you find people literally everywhere, all over campus, and off campus too. Everyone is looking to meet people. So you find friends anywhere you go.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like being in college is kind of like being a toddler again. It's like you could really go up to almost anyone and be like, "Hi, my name's Ruby. Do you want to be friends? Like, do you want to get coffee sometime?" And people are like, "Yeah, sure, maybe." Like, for the most part, I definitely met a lot of my friends like just being like, "Hey, does anyone want to go to the beach today?" And people were like, "Yeah, I want to go to the beach today." And I was like, "Cool, you want to go with me?" And they're like, "Sure." Or just like meeting people through people. Like, I don't know, I became friends with people, and then they were like, "Here, want to meet my friends?" And I was like, "Oh." And then I guess it's just kind of like you kind of just meet a lot of people, and like and eventually you kind of just end up with really good friends that kind of stick around, like, and you're like, oh, these are like, you know, we're gonna hang out every day, or not every day, but like you hang out with them a lot more than like other people as well too.
Okay, thank you, ladies, and for staying until time. But I want to thank everyone for attending this session. I hope you folks learned a lot. I learned a lot, and how much of a better student I needed to be, but hopefully y'all can learn from them. So this is not your only opportunity to ask your leaders questions. You can attend their OLW, and you can email them. So they're super accessible, very knowledgeable about being a student. So feel free to reach out, always ask questions and all that fun stuff. This session will be recorded and uploaded to the VisitDays platform. If you have any questions, reach out to your leader, or you can email nrwo@hawaii.edu. Thank you so much to our panelists and everyone for joining today. I hope you all have a wonderful, beautiful day. Thank you.